Okay, welcome back, everyone. Day two of week one of programming basics. There's only 1 week anyways. So day two and the second lecture here, we're going to be going over a couple concepts of commenting and conditionals. This is really important stuff. And then we'll go into on our assignments here, we'll go into groups. And by the end of the day, the challenge is to get to this code challenge, get on that ride. Okay, and the homework is to read up to and through parameters. The link is here in the calendar. And just a few comments here on getting a hold of me. I've noticed here on Discord that I've got some messages. I've received some messages like directly to my Discord name. And it's really hard to respond to those because one, they don't pop up immediately on my Discord, and two, even when I am able to find them, I'm not able to tell who exactly it is that's sending me a message unless your username is somewhat related to your actual name. So sometimes I get gamer names and I'm just not able to tell who is who. So the best way is to contact me via email. So you can just click my email here, send me a message there. And I do check that frequently enough. Or here on the Zoom call, I'm here from 9 to 5 every day, Mountain Time. So you can always get a hold of me, go into my office, ask me there, and that's the quickest response. Of course, if you post it on the Discord channel for everyone to see, I'll be able to see it. But if you don't want anyone else to see, then you can hop in my room or email me. Okay, with that being said, let's move on to the lesson. So we'll be working on commenting and conditionals today. So let's go ahead and go to the platform. I'm going to go over to that. Commenting and conditionals. We went over order of operations this morning. I'm not going to quiz you guys on that. You guys knew that pretty well. We went over the concept of data types again, primitive versus non-primitive data types. Primitive being strings and numbers, and non-primitive being arrays that can be strings and numbers. We went over push and pop, how to add to the end of the array and how to remove from the end of the array. By the way, did anyone ever figure out if you can enter a parameter into pop?
No, you can't.
Right. Yes, that's true. No, you cannot enter a parameter into pop and give a specific place where you want to pop from. It's always going to be from the end of the array. Okay. Thank you, Tina, for that. Now let's go ahead and go on to comments here. Here's the lesson. If you want to follow along in the platform as I'm reading it, or if you just want to know where it is, if you go to commenting, introduction to comments, here we are. Okay, so we went over this yesterday and the day before, actually, but now here's the official lesson. What is a comment? Can anyone tell me?
Something that adds additional context to what the code is or does. It can only be seen by the person in the console or making the code.
Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and make a note of that. All right.
It's in plain English.
1. A comment can be a note for other developers to understand. The context. So it helps it helps divide the code into sections and areas that we are better able to understand. So when we're working on a team, we leave comments not just for ourselves, but for others to see what we're doing exactly at that specific line of code or what follows it. What about if someone were to say comment out that line of code? What does that mean?
Make it into a comment.
Okay. And what does that mean?
Use the comment to take that line of code out.
Okay.
So it
And
stops functioning.
yes, so comment out, what it means is we are going to make a specific line of code like a comment so that it does not get read by the machine. So this means to hide a line or more of code from the machine. Okay, that's it. That's all you really need to know about comments. When you leave comments for other people to see what you're doing in specific areas, obviously, whenever you write a sentence in a line of code, you don't want your code to read your sentence. It's not going to understand English or whatever other language you're speaking at the time. And to comment out something is to make a working line of code to be ignored by the machine so that it does not run that specific line. Okay? So, how do we write comments? Not everybody at once.
2 forward slashes or 2 backslashes.
Yep.
2 forward slashes.
Sorry, man, I'm a little slow right now. I have to admit, I'm dragging.
It's okay. It's all right. So we have 2 forward slashes, and it depends on the language, really. So I'm kind of giving you trick questions here, but just to get you thinking, there's multiple ways to write a comment. Okay, look at this here. We have 2 forward slashes, and when we write it like this way here, it's going to ignore this line. And you can add multiple comments like this to all these lines for these lines below, but we also can make a block comment that will take out several lines, and they are defined by the slash and star or multiplication symbol, and then multiplication symbol and slash. Okay, so for example, if I want to pull up Visual Studio Code here to give an example, I'm going to load it. Bear with me here. Here I have a block comment. Okay. It started here. It ended on line 5, 3 to 5. And this is actually incorrect syntax. What I want it to do is put a star before the slash. There was an incorrect quiz answer on our page here. I had to get that corrected, and I was just demonstrating that the answer on the quiz is wrong. But I'll get to that in a moment. So this is a block comment. Okay, if I wanted to write much more lines of comments here, so I'll say lorem times 5. Oh, this is not HTML. So I'm going to just smash on my keyboard here. I can also highlight this block, and on my Mac here, if I do command, hold down command, then slash, it'll add the slash comments to the block that I'm applying it to. And that's another way to add multiple lines of comment at the same time. And your text editor will know the best type of comments to add. to the line of code that you are trying to comment out. Okay, on PC, it's going to be Control/. On a Mac, it'll be Command/. In order to uncomment it at the same time, I can highlight the block and do Command/ again, and it will uncomment these lines of code or whatever lines of description that you want to add. Okay, by the way, you can highlight multiple lines of code by clicking on the number here on Visual Studio Code. So I'll click on 8 and I want to drag to 11. So I'll click to 8, drag to 11, and that'll highlight it instead of having to pick the certain spot, drag over, and go in a diagonal way. I like to just do it a vertical way like this and then add a comment if I need to do that. Okay, let's go back to the platform here. The simplest form of comment is a double slash followed by the text you want to be commented. And then we have the shortcut, the Control/ or Command/ on a Mac. Okay. Here's a bit of advice. When you're turning in your work, never turn in commented code that doesn't function at all or doesn't work there unless you want it to be commented and uncommented by other developers to see. But when you're turning in work to your boss, don't leave commented code there. It's a bit like trash. You want to leave it nice and clean. Everything there should be functioning. Don't leave commented code on the work that you're turning in. Okay. Another word on comments. Let's see here. If I add another line of code here, and I try to comment here within a comment, and then I try to uncomment this whole block comment, it just becomes a mess. It just becomes comments on top of comments here. So just be careful when you are commenting multiple blocks at the same time. Depending on the language, the text editor will be confused as to what you're trying to comment and uncomment, especially with these type of comments, these type of block comments. So if I try to uncomment this, it's so confusing, it's hard to explain what is actually happening. It'll try to uncomment and comment at the same time, and leave other lines uncommented that should be commented.
Do you recommend generally using the double slash format then rather than the block?
Using a double slash. See, right now I'm in JavaScript, and if I highlight multiple lines, it'll use the double slash already for each and every line. It depends on what you're working on and the context that you're working in. So sometimes double slash is better. Sometimes this block comment is a bit better. But like I said, if you use both at the same time, then it becomes confusing. I've had issues where I'm trying to uncomment blocks, but leave certain other blocks within the block comment uncommented, and it becomes a bit of a mess. So just keeping track and knowing how each comment and uncomment block works is a good idea. So if I want to leave this bottom row uncommented, I just move the end there instead of trying to highlight and use the shortcut. Okay, so it's not so hard to not get mixed up. It's pretty easy to keep track of what's going on, but just FYI. Okay. Now let's do a knowledge check here. All right. Let's take a quiz. Comments are useful to do which of the following things? Is it 1, allow us programmers to add additional context to code while we're writing, or 2, make our program run faster and more securely?
1.
1. Like your enthusiasm. How would you write a single line comment using JavaScript?
The third one.
Okay. And how would you write a multi-line comment using JavaScript?
4th, but it's wrong.
This is the closest to the correct answer. This is actually wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, I've already reported this. This is gonna be fixed,
that's
but
fine.
I already gave you guys the answer, so I'm glad you caught it. Trick question. There are other ways to comment. This would be something like an HTML, which you guys will be learning next week. But your text editor will know how to comment exactly. Okay, so you don't have to know by memory what what comment is for which language. All you have to know is the shortcut. Okay, for a specific line, you use command /. There it is. It's in there. It's commented. Okay. So this should be easy enough. Let's get a status check how we're feeling about comments.
No comment.
No comment. That's funny. Cool. All right. Let's move on to a more interesting concept. Let's go on to conditionals. All right. So we have a function here. We have the name of the function, and we have a parameter that it takes in. It's going to take in a flashlight. And then we have the beginning of the block here. Let me add some comments here. So this is the beginning. Oh. This is the end. And everything else here is the heart of the function. So we have an if-else statement. This is a switch. All right. If flashlight is on, if this is true, then we are going to do everything inside the if statement. We know the beginning of the if statement is here, defined by the opening bracket. And I don't think I have the hand for this. This is the closing one here. So everything inside the if statement is going to happen. It's going to run if flashlight.isOn is equal to true. So just imagine some other a flashlight that has it's either on or off, right? So there's only two switches to a flashlight, on or off. If it's on, for example, if in that we're going to say is if it's true, then we're going to turn the flashlight off. So then we're going to set flashlight is on. We're going to make that false. And if this condition is not met, flashlight.isOn is equal to true. By the way, we'll go over what this means, double equal signs, in a bit. If this is true, then we're going to do something inside here. We can console log something inside here. We can create a variable that exists in here. We can do all kinds of things if we meet a condition, if a condition is true. In this case, we're just going to say we're going to turn the flashlight on if it's off, if it's on. Okay. If this condition isn't met, then we are going to move to the else statement. That's only if it's not met. An else follows an if, and it will move on. The program will move on to the else if this condition isn't met. So let's say it's not met, and we're going to say flashlight.on is true. So that is an if-else statement. There's more than one way. There's more than one way to write an if-else statement. There's shorthand JavaScript code to do this as well. We're just going to focus on making it this way. Just writing out if something is true and else. Okay, maybe if you guys later on, I might introduce some concepts, but right now that this is, we're gonna write things the simple way. This is a way to check if something is true or false. So all of programming is mostly if statements and for loops, okay? This is one key component to programs. It's going to check if something is true. When you turn your computer on today, if your computer is off and you click the button, your computer is going to turn on, okay? Else, if your computer is on, when you press that same button, it's going to check if it's already on. When you press the button, then it's going to turn off. It's a very simple trick. It's like a light switch. Okay? It's just going to check if something, and we put in the parameters here within these parentheses, within these parentheses is where we're going to put the checker. Okay? So let me write in here. Checker goes in here. So whenever you write an if statement, you always need to put something within this area, the parentheses. You have to check if something is true or false, or if it exists, or if it's greater than or less than something, or if it's there's lots of things that you can check in an if statement. But when you check using an if statement, you put what you want to check within the parentheses, and then what you want it to do within the curly brackets. Okay, in here you do something. Okay. All right. Let's check to see that we're all understanding this. So I'll say, if you understand this, this is an if statement here. If you understand this very well, give me a 10. If not, give me a number that's less than 10. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Nine. Okay. All right. So my goal is to get all you guys onto a 10. So we're going to use trace later on to do some if statements. But first I want to take this quiz and then go over some more conditionals here. Okay. So we know what the structure of an if statement looks like. Okay. They go inside functions. And they are a function themselves, but they want to be defined within a greater function. And we put the parameters within the parentheses, what we want to check, if it's true or false, if it exists or not, if it's greater than or less than something. And then we do something within the curly brackets. We don't always need an else statement to follow an if statement. It's not always necessary, but if we want it, it's there. Okay. So an else is not always necessary to follow an if, but we can use an else to follow up and say, if this condition isn't met, then we want to do something else. Okay. If it's rainy, don't go outside. Else, go outside. But you can say also, if it's rainy, just don't go outside. You don't have to say else go outside. You can stay in if you want. I'm just trying to give a rough analogy here of how you can write an if else statement in your thinking of day-to-day life. Okay, so now let's take a small quiz. In what line would the light turn on if the light is already off? A, function toggle flashlight, and then this opening bracket. If flashlight dot is on is equal to true, flashlight dot is on equals false, Or the last one, flashlight dot on is true. In what line will we turn the light on if it's already off? 4. Everyone's saying 4. Great. Yeah, because if it's off, then we want to turn it on. All right. 2. In what line would the light turn off if the light is already on? Function toggle flashlight, parentheses, parameter, flashlight, and then curly bracket. B, if flashlight dot is on is equal to true, and then something would go in here, flashlight dot on, flashlight dot is on equals false, or flashlight dot is on equals true. People are saying, what does the survey say? I got some answers before. 3, 2 3s. I think this is self-explanatory. If it's already on, then we want to turn it off, right? So is on, we're going to say that is false. Wait, what's the question here? In what line will we turn oh, in what line will we turn the light off if the light is already on? Yeah, okay, I'm doubting myself here. Let's see the results.
You're confusing us, Josh.
Oh, wait, what? It didn't select my answer. Now I'm really confused.
There's another question after you just passed it.
Oh, okay. Gosh, I was a little bit scared there.
You got this, Josh.
Okay, I can do it. 3. Oh, okay. Bonus question. In what line starts the functionality of the button being pressed? Which line starts the functionality? 1, function toggle flashlight. 2, if flashlight is on is equal to true. 3, flashlight dot is on is false, or D, flashlight dot is on is equal to true. Probably not C or D. Which line starts the functionality of the button being pressed?
Function. It's gotta be a function.
Great. Right. The function is the start of the functionality. Okay. Now, let's move on to conditionals. Now we have an else if statement that we want to introduce. Okay. So I'll read this line here. What if we have some code that we only want to execute under certain conditions? Think about our flashlight example. We only want to turn it on if it's already off. In computer programming, this is called a conditional statement. The syntax in JavaScript looks like this, okay? So we have the if condition. All right, we take in the initial condition of whatever we're checking. And then in here, in the if statement, we say what we want to do if the condition is true. If the condition is true, we'll do this. Else, if, and it takes in a second condition. We can have 0 to many of the statements, what to do if the second condition is true. And then the final else here can have 0 or 1 of these statements, and what to do if the previous conditions are met. So it may seem a little confusing here between else and else if, but what is the obvious view? Keithan, are you needing something? I can't hear you if you are speaking. Oh, go ahead and type in your question if we can't hear you through your mic. We'll wait here. Okay, so the questions on the previous quiz for the flashlight. Okay, let's do that. Why not? Let's do that. Where were we?
Under conditionals.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay. And we were at the quiz here. Okay, so here is the quiz. Which question did you have specifically there? It's okay, as long as you can type. The first two. Okay. So, all right. So let me try to explain this here. The first question is, in what line would the light turn on if the light is already off? So if we look at this function right here, we say if flashlight.on is true, so it can only be true or false, right? We understand flashlight is on, it can be true or false. If it's on, then we turn it off in this if statement. And if it's otherwise, in any other condition, if flashlight is on is false, then we want to make it true. Else flashlight.on is true. So we take in a condition already. Flashlight is going to be either, so let's say we have a flashlight, okay? We're going to create a variable called flashlight. Var flashlight equals var flashlight equals well, here it's specifying dot is on. So there's going to be a property to the flashlight, okay? And this is more in the case of an object. So I don't want to introduce the concept of objects yet, but we can say dot is on. We can just say dot is on, okay? And it can either be true, or we can write the whole thing over and we can say equals false. If the flashlight is on, if this statement is true, flashlight is on, then we want to turn the flashlight off with this function. That's what this function does. It toggles the flashlight. So the toggling means if it's one thing, then we want to switch it to the other. If it's
So
the
on
other
is
thing,
off is on.
yeah. So if it's on, if on is true, then we're going to switch it to false so that on is false. If on is false, and that's going to be the case here in this else, there's going to only be two options here. How do I switch back to my pen? I got to move this here. I can't remove this while I'm writing with my pen. I'll figure out how to do that later. But this else statement is going to handle the condition of anything else if flashlight is on. And a Boolean, which means something that's true or false, can only be that. It can only be true or false. So if this is not true, then we're going to say flashlight.isOn is false, and else, that's what is written here, else we're going to turn this to true because it's already false. So then we're going to switch it to true. Okay. If it's not making complete sense right now, we will definitely go over if statements in depth because it's key to understand this. Okay. Okay, you got it. Thank you, Keaton. Yep. Don't worry about it. Oh, the second, see this double equal sign. We will go over in a few minutes here. We'll go over what that means. But what this means is it's a checker. It's different than just a one equal sign. So this is assigning a value. You are declaring that something will equal that. This double equal sign is checking.
Okay. Okay.
This is checking. Okay. When you see a double equal sign, you're supposed to in your head read it as, is it equal to? Is equal to. You know, it's in English we say it the same way for both. We're gonna say var x, and this is we're gonna say is equal to 5, and then this we're gonna use it the same way in English. We're gonna say var x, is it equal to 5? But this is asking a question. All right, so I'll write that comment. Asking a question.
What does 3 equal signs do again?
Well, that is a little bit more complex, and we will go over that at the end, towards the end of the lecture. Okay, there is a 3 equal sign here, and that is also asking if something is equal to, but it's very specific, and so we have to go over the concept of data types. But essentially, you right now, as we're learning about this double equal sign and this triple equal sign, we can use them interchangeably right now. Okay, so you don't need to know the difference between a double equal sign and a triple equal sign.
Just
Right
real
now-
quick again, Josh, what's a triple again? A triple does what?
The same as a double, but it's a little different. We'll go over what the
Okay, all right.
specifics. I haven't touched on that yet, so we're jumping ahead. So let's go ahead and move ahead now that Keithan is understanding these questions, and then we'll go ahead and move on to conditionals here. Okay, so we have an if statement, we have an else if statement, and an else. So we want to know what the difference is between an else statement and an else if statement. Okay, so just looking at this, if you had to guess, what is the difference between an else if and an else? Without reading these comments, if you just had to guess, what's the obvious difference between this else if and the else?
The else if will activate if a specific condition is met, whereas
Right.
the else by itself will activate if any other condition is met that
Right.
isn't satisfied by the original if or else if.
Yes, exactly. Nice job, Mike. So, in the case of the flashlight, there's only 2 conditions, right? True or false for if it's on. Okay, so we only had to use we used an else because we already knew that if it's true, then it's going to be false. But what if there's more than one condition than true or false? What if we want to check more than one condition? Then we want to specify in this area here, in this parentheses, in the else if statement, if that other specific condition is true. Okay. If you can use multiple else if statements to check multiple specific conditions if the original if isn't met. But the difference between an else and an else if is the specific condition. Else is going to take any other condition if the original if isn't met. But the else if is going to take in a very specific condition. So let me try to think of an analogy here. If the child is 5 years old, the child will watch Sesame Street. Else, if the child is 10 to 12 years old, the child will watch Cartoon Network. Else, the child will watch the news, or the person will watch the news, right? So I had 2 specific conditions because there can be more than one condition that can be met. The if statement is going to check if the person is 5 years old, then show them this program. Else, if the person is in another age range, I said 10 to 12, then show them this program. Else, show them everybody else that's not 5 or 10 to 12 is going to watch the third option, whatever program it is, the
Okay,
news.
that helps. Yeah, that helps.
Okay, so it's just checking a specific condition. So not everything is a true or false. So when we check something based on numbers, based on a range, you know, so that's okay. I'm glad that helps. So I didn't want to write that out with my pen. So hopefully you guys got that. So let's give a level of understanding here for this one. Let's get a knowledge check, 1 through 10. How are you guys feeling between else if and else?
Another important thing I think just to touch on is like that, you know, like this won't happen unless this, you know, is false. You know what I mean?
Yes, good point, Joseph. Okay, when we're writing, and Jesse, we'll try to think of more analogies here as I try to explain here more. This else if, go ahead and explain that again, Joseph. You had a good way of saying
Yeah,
it.
it's like, so it'll check this statement here and evaluate it. And if it comes back true, it's going to do what's inside of here, right? But otherwise, if it's false, the only way this will ever get checked is if that first if is false, right? It's like saying else if, like only do this if the first one was false. And then if both of them return false, you can do what's down here. So like the only way that's gonna, the only way the else will be ran essentially is if both of these evaluate to false, right?
Right. So if the child in our example here, if the child is not 5 or 10 to 12, then we are going to show them the last available program.
Mm-hmm. And it's just weird because that else doesn't have a condition, because then it's just like every other situation that could happen. You know what I mean? So
I should have actually said 1 to 5, 6 to 12, and then everything else above 12, show them this program. Okay, so we'll quiz on this later, and I'll try to think of another analogy as I'm talking here. All right, so let's give a specific numeric example here. We have some if-else statements. Var x equals 25. If x is greater than 50, and we know it's greater than because a lot of the times we'll run into bugs because we just didn't take into account whether we wrote a greater than or less than sign. So this is a greater than. Try to fully expand the screen. And this is a less than. Okay. So if x is greater than 50, then we console log this. Else, then we console log this. So this else is going to run if x is less than 50. Okay, imagine a TV where there's only 2 channels. There's the channel for people above 50, and there's a channel for everybody else. Okay, you're going to watch the channel for the 50 and above if you're 50 and above. You're going to console log bigger than 50. Else, if you're not over 50, you're not going to enjoy the channel, so you go to the other channel, smaller than or equal to 50. Okay, so this else is going to be met if this if isn't met. So there's only 2 possibilities here. Now we're going to go over the else if now and see the difference. If x is greater than 100, then we're going to console log bigger than 100. Else if x is greater than 50, so we're checking the range between 50 and 100, then we're going to console log bigger than 50. Else if it's greater than 25, so if the original if statement is not met, if the else if statement is not met, then we go to the third else if conditional, which is if x is greater than 25, then we're going to log bigger than 25. Lastly, if all those conditions previous are not met, then we're going to console log small number. Okay, so here we're checking specific parameters, and the way to check is using the else if. If everything else doesn't meet in the specific parameters, then we throw an else in at the very end, and then we say we want to console log a small number. So these are just different tools that we can use to go ahead and check if we are meeting that condition, and if we want to specify further what the next condition we want to check is, and it goes in the order from top to bottom. The else is only going to hit if the previous conditions haven't been met, and the else if is only going to hit if the previous else ifs or the original if statement isn't met. Okay, sorry for the interruption, guys. I'm not sure what happened there with my mouse, but can we get a status check 1 through 10 on our understanding here?
It's kind of like a flow chart. In a sense.
Yep. Okay, now let's scroll down a little bit. And here we have some ways, some operators that we are going to use in the parentheses area of our if or our else if statements. So the first one here is the double equal sign. The double equal sign is going to check if something is true. So one, you're going to check here on the example on the very right here, if 1 is equal to 2, and that's going to come out false, right? Like 1 is not equal to 2. So if we check 1 against 2, we know we're going to get a false. Okay, but if we check if 1 is equal to 1, then we know we're going to get a true statement. Then we do something in here. If we're writing an if statement and we're in the conditional section, in the parentheses, if we say if 1 is equal to 1, then we do something. Then we are going to do that thing in the if statement we create because 1 is equal to 1. So it is true. Okay, but if we, for example, are, and we know 1 is not equal to 2, so maybe that's a bit confusing, but let's say we create these variables. And as these variables change in our program and they're shifting values here and there based on user clicks, or if someone scrolls to this part of the page, or so on and so forth, you can have like endless amount of conditions that you can have a user meet. But if it's not what you want it to be, if 1 is not equal to 1, then we know we're going to get a false here, right? 1 is not equal to 2, so we know we're going to get a false every time that is going to be checked. Okay, so now the next operator, exclamation mark equal sign. This means not equal to. So think of the exclamation mark meaning not, and the equal sign is going right next to it, no spaces in between. Together they form a not equal to. So we're going to check here on the example on the right. We're going to say on the first line, if 1 is not equal to 2, and that is true, right? 1 is not equal to 2. So this is a true statement. And so if we put this into a condition of an if statement, then the if statement will run. But if we say if 1 is not equal to 1, then we do something. But that's going to run false because 1 is equal to 1. So this is how we write a not equal to. Okay, let's get a status check on whether we're understanding the difference between equal to and not equal to. Okay, great. Let me see if I can annotate here with my broken mouse. Oh, nope, no luck here. Let me see here. Nope, I'm not going to try. Okay, so then we have the greater than sign. We already went over that. If it's if the open part is facing to the left, then we know we're checking if it's greater than. If the pointer, if the sharp end is pointing to the left, then we know it's a less than sign. Okay, and it matters which direction it's facing. So open first, greater than. Pointer first is less than. And lastly, we have the greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. Okay. It's going to check if a value is equal to or greater than. So it's checking two things at once, if it's greater than or equal to. And now below we have less than or equal to. So it's checking two things at once, if it's less than or equal to. If either condition is met, then it's going to be true. As you see on the examples on the right, if 1 is less than or equal to 2, 1 is less than 2. So that's the first condition. It met the first condition, so it's going to be true. And then below it, we say 2. If 2 is less than or equal to 2, that condition is met too, because it didn't meet the less than, but it did meet the equal to. So the equal sign is going to check if 2 is equal to 2, and then we say that's true. Okay, let's get a status check on greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Tina, don't worry about annotating it. We're almost done with the lesson here. We're almost at the hour, and we're pretty much wrapping up here.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Appreciate it. So let's see here what the assignments are for the day. Let's look at our calendar for a second. Joseph, if you would switch over to the calendar tab to the left. So we're here on Tuesday, and the assignments that we're working on is practicing commenting and the code challenge, get on that ride. Okay, let's look at the code challenge. If this takes too long to load, I think you, oh, there it goes. Okay, so here the assignment is, oh, can you scroll to the top? We're gonna create variables in our project, in our VS Code assignment. And we're gonna create the following using what we've learned about conditionals, variables, and data types. Okay, so go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Imagine we are creating a ride, a roller coaster ride, and there's two conditions that have to be met. All right. The first is that the child has to be greater than 42 inches. And the second condition, could you scroll down a little bit for me, please? The second condition is if the child is greater than or equal to 10 years old. All right, so you have two variables here. The first variable is going to be height. The second variable is going to be age. Okay, and you're going to create an if statement that's going to say, get on that ride, kiddo, if the height condition is met and if the age condition is met. Okay, you can have more than one if statement. You can use one if statement for height, and you can have one if statement for age. Okay, and if you scroll down, Joseph, you can also try to do the stretch feature 1 and stretch feature 2. Okay, I want you guys just to focus on making it work without using the stretch features. I'm not going to introduce what these stretch features are. I would if I had mouse control, but since I don't, I'll go ahead and add it on to a lesson tomorrow. Okay, I just want you guys to meet the basics of this assignment, and then we'll get fancy with it. Okay, but all you need to do is write some if-else statements. If the height condition is met, then we say this. Else, if the age condition is met, then we're going to do that. We are going to say, get on that ride, or we're going to say, sorry, maybe next year. Okay, so submit your assignment into a zip, and that is the goal for today. Does anyone have any questions about how this assignment should work? How can you check if your if-else statements are working properly?
Change the value of the variable you're putting in based inside or outside of the parameters you set for each statement.
Okay, and how
see
do
if
you
it
how do you run the code to check if those parameters are checking correctly?
run it in trace.
Right, let's go to trace if you would, Joseph, and that'll be the last thing for this lecture.
Sorry, I was trying to find my mute button. Is there a link in here?
Yep,
To trace.
so you'll go ahead and click helpful links,
Okay.
and then we go to trace. And then inside the function run demo from lines 21 to 20, scroll down. Delete everything inside the function run demo. Yeah. So
Okay.
this tool trace is something we can use to go ahead and test some code that we want to write. So let's do var age equals 5. Okay, and then on the next line, let's write an if statement. If age is greater than or equal to 10, then we want to console log get on that ride, kiddo. Okay, so here we've defined a variable on line 21 within our run demo function, and then we've written an if statement right after we've written the variable. Okay, and the parameters that it's going to check in the if statement, it's going to check if age is greater than or equal to 10. All right, so what do you think is going to happen if we run this function? Okay, it should prompt for age, but what is actually going to happen if we run this function? Let's go ahead and run it. So on the top right of the screen, there's the run button, and we're going to see our code in action. Good guess. We're going to see if it's going to be undefined, an error, if anything happens at all. Let's see what happens. So as it's loading here, I'm not going to tell any jokes while we're waiting. Okay. It's going to run the demo. It gets to the age. It checks the if statement. And then it's done. So if we play that again, go ahead and press play. Now press pause. You see how it has a pause button there? Okay. Right now, age is undefined because it's on line 21. It hasn't finished reading this until it gets onto the next line. So if you press play, then pause again really quick. The play and pause, or you can press the arrows, yeah.
Is that where you wanted to go?
No, yeah, press play, then pause it until it gets to the next line. There we go, pause it. We've just defined here age is equal to 5. And if age is greater than or equal to 10, it's going to console log, get on that right, kiddo. But since age is not greater than or equal to 10, it doesn't do anything at all. There's no else statement. Exactly, Keithan. Now, if we wanted to do something else, and then we write an else statement. So let's go back to code. And below the if statement, let's write an else statement. So else, maybe next year, console log, sorry, maybe next year. Yep, that's good enough. Okay, so now if our if statement is not met, then the else is going to trigger. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this now. By the way, there's other programs besides Trace that can run your code. Trace is just a good way to see a visual, to see how it runs line by line. So as you can see, it hit the else statement. That is what's triggered because the if was not triggered. The if came out to be false, so the else statement had to trigger. So when you are writing code and turning in your assignments, you always want to check to see if your code is working by going to Trace and writing in there to see if your code is functioning properly. Do we have any questions about how Trace works? Yes, there is a way to run code in VS here all, but we want to enforce using Trace because of the visual that it gives. So later on, you'll learn how to use Visual Studio, and it's going to run instantaneously. It's going to give you the result right away. But when you're running Trace, you see the highlight of a line by line, exactly how the code is running, how it's checking what you've written. So there's different tools you can use that we are going to visualize here. It needs to actually trigger the run demo. I don't think it's
I just defined it, didn't I?
Yeah, so we've defined the function. We need to press the go button here. So we're going to visualize execution, and then we can see here age is 5, so we are going to run the demo. And this is another line by line executor. But we want to focus on using Trace because that's what we got to do for now.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, Python Tutor is also available if Trace is being clunky for you, because it can be at times. But
yep, it's linked on the schedule. If you want to use Trace, go ahead and let's go to the schedule again to visualize where it is, Joseph. So if you are on the schedule, click the schedule tab on the very bottom. There is a list of tabs. Or on the top there, you'll see the helpful links link. Either way will take you to the helpful links area. And then you'll see Trace as a helpful link there that you can click and it'll take you to the website. So one more note about Trace. Everything that you want to test will go inside the run demo. Sorry, did someone ask something?
I just said thanks.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fantastic. So yeah, everything is going to go inside your run demo between lines 21 and whatever, wherever it's closing.
Or
yes.
for Trace, if you want to run your own function inside the run demo function, do you just copy paste it in there and then end with run demo calling to the demo function?
Yeah, so line 17 is anytime you press play, run demo is going to be triggered by line 17 when you press the play. I don't want to explain what export function main means. That's it. It's getting a little bit too detailed for where we're at right now. And creating another function inside the run demo, you'd have to trigger that function outside of the run demo function. Again, it's getting too complicated. So my recommendation is just test your code, copy and paste it inside run demo for now. Okay. Now, the difference between the double equal sign and triple equal sign, we'll definitely want to go over that. We'll go over that later. It's not essential for you to know right now. Just know that they do the same thing. Double equal and triple equal, they do the same thing. Okay. As you go on, then you'll know the difference, and then you'll know how to use them to your advantage. But for now, they're the same thing. They do the same thing. It's a check. Okay. 1 equal sign is an assignment. 2 equal to 3 equal signs is a check. Is this equal to? Okay. So I don't want to overwhelm you guys with information. You know, I was thinking about how does anyone remember their first day of kindergarten? Some of us knew how to, some of us don't. I remember. So some of us knew how to read the alphabet. Some of us knew how to read and write going into kindergarten. Some of us didn't. Okay, for the people that didn't know how to, didn't know the alphabet, you know, it was overwhelming, all the information at once. So going over nuances, like going over accented letters of other languages, you know, how do you spell the word resume? You can just write it R-E-S-U-M-E, but you can also spell it with accents, right? You're not going to explain to someone that's just learning English how to spell resume with accents, because they're not going to see that on the English alphabet. So let's just keep things simple for the sake of everybody that's learning this for the first time. And as you progress through Coding Dojo, things will definitely increase in difficulty. But let's keep it simple. Let's just keep it with the basics for now. Here's where you test your code in Trace. And the assignment is to work on the Get on That Ride Kiddo assignment. What's the official name? I can't see it in front of me. Well, you guys know what it is. What is it called? It is called Coding Challenge Get on That Ride. Oh, I was right. Cool. All right. So do we have any specific questions that we'd like to ask at this time? If not, we're going to go ahead and break out into breakout rooms. Okay. I don't see anyone asking questions. No time, nothing in the chat. So what time is it here? I think we should end the lecture here. Okay, thank you guys very much. Sorry about the interruption with the mouse thing. I will, oh, Tina's question. Why aren't you introducing Node.js to run code yet? Because in programming basics, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that later in web fundamentals. So there's a way to run code in Visual Studio, but we want to enforce using Trace for those of us learning for the first time to see the visual of how it goes line by line. Okay. If you do know how to do it, then you can go ahead and do it. But we're not going to teach anything new above what we've already covered. Okay. So we'll definitely get more complex as we go along. So thank you guys very much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. I'll let you guys know when they're up on YouTube. So you can watch this over. And I will fix my mouse, whatever it takes. I'm going to get this problem under control. All right. So thank you guys, and I'll be in my office if you guys need me.